bicycles, victory for the air conditioner. So with that, I'd also like to welcome you to Park Street, especially if you are not a regular attender, and say, welcome to Park Street. The very unusual setting that I know some folks, when they visited for the first time, stepped into things like this and went, where am I? And where did the church go? Well, the church goes everywhere. This is a church, if we are faithfully, oh, there you go. I know that helps. I just came back from Memphis. I was walking on Memphis. You know the song. Ruth, we were at, thank you. I always need a snare. We were in Memphis for the Disciples of Christ General Assembly last week. It was 5 days. Now, I don't know, what do you think the average is? Like a 12-hour day, basically. From kiver to kiver. But it was amazing and affirming to step into that place and say, wow, Park Street, this is our home. That the Disciples of Christ, we are peppered across the United States. Though we technically are considered evangelical, we are probably the most quiet evangelicals unless you go to Poor Person's Poverty Campaign or Rights for LGBTQ folks with Alliance Q or the Green Chalice work. We're everywhere doing God's work. We don't necessarily walk around with sandwich boards and tracts about where would you be tonight if you perished. So we believe we are part of redemption and the reconciliation of this planet. And as we say, we are put to bring wholeness back in a fragmented world. Part of that is doing things differently at times, which includes at Park Street each summer doing the speaker series. The thematic theme throughout the past 3 years has been sacredness. And I think many of us who were raised in the church have identified sacredness as of something to bow down to be almost scared of, or that doesn't mean me, that's something way up there on a mountain with a cloud and a pillar, right? But what we have learned is we are all holistically sacred people, and we have sacred expressions unique to us like our thumbprints. And that there's a way that God can use us outside the walls of the church, and as it is attributed to St. Francis, whether he said it or not, that, only use words when you need to. It should be your life and how you live it and how you bring positivity to the rooms you enter, not a critical, pursed lip attitude, whether your lips are pursed or not. I am blessed to be in a congregation that embraces this, and I'm thoroughly excited about this week's speaker, Dave Shreve, which we'll hear a bit about later. With that, I would let you know that next week is our last speaker series, and we will be welcoming Karen Edwards, who has multiple degrees and a lot of experience and a good sense of humor, so she's going to fit right in here. With that, I'm going to call upon Donna to lead us in our opening sung breathing meditation. We also, for those who haven't been part of this, are using more meditative songs to open and close our service. Welcome to Park Street. I'll help with the low part.
And Becca Peters, would you come up and help with the high part? All right. So this song is all about, as we talked about in our small group this morning, being in the moment. So the words, as you can see behind me, are to breathe in. Why don't we just try that once before we start the song? Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. Right? Okay, so this song is actually in 3 parts. You are welcome to sing any one of the 3 parts. We will demonstrate them and just join in where you feel comfortable. So the first part goes, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. All right, middle part goes, when I breathe in, I breathe in, when I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I start with the low part twice. Right. When I breathe in.
No.
I'm sorry. Breathe in. Out. Breathe in. Breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. Breathe out, I breathe out love. Nicely done.
Mic shift. Sorry, Chad. Give you a little bit more of a perch there.
I don't feel right by myself up here.
I know, you can do it, baby. You can do it.
She has to come up with me.
You can do it, baby. We're holding it.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name's Mike. My wife, Annie. And Jack and Sophie are with us. Good morning, guys. It's nice to see everybody. I'll be doing the sacred readings this morning. Hear now the words of wisdom from the Greco-Roman first century Stoics to the writings of our spiritual mentors, all encouraging us to keep calm, kind, and strong as we carry on. First, from Marcus Aurelius, who wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being, knowing that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Fellow Stoic Epictetus, sorry.
I put a phonetic in it.
Epictetus would add, though we cannot choose our external circumstances, we can always choose how we respond to them. For it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Sweetly summed by Seneca's, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. And from their spiritual writings of the Greek Testament, who join in the art of encouragement, Hebrews 11, 1 through 2, 12, 1 through 2. Faith is the reality of all that is hoped for. Faith is the proof that faith is the proof of all that is unseen. Because of faith, our ancestors were approved by God. By faith, we understand that the world was created by the word from God, and that what is visible came into being through the invisible. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside everything that impedes us and the sin that so easily entangles us. Let us run with perseverance the race laid out for us. Let us not lose sight of Jesus, who leads us in our faith and brings it to perfection. With that, I invite David Pedrick forward to introduce the interviewed Dave Shreve. David, the floor is yours. Thank you.
So Dave, you can come on up. So traditionally there's a little bit of a lengthy introduction. We're going to spend so much time talking about all the wonderful things that this Renaissance man has done that we're going to skip the introduction and just go right on up there. So enjoy.
Here comes your mic.
So we have. Let's try it.
No?
There we go.
So we've had a chance over the last couple of weeks to get to know each other and to share, and I have to say I am somewhat in awe of the breadth of your experience and your commitment to doing good works and great things. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about what it was like to grow up and your education, and what kind of motivated you in your youth to get you to where you are now.
Well, I always like to think that it's mostly serendipity. Virginia, grandson of coal miners, son of school teachers, and was blessed at an early age with two younger brothers whom I admired and developed a fast friendship with. And so my world was one in which I was just fed lots of great things and spiritual moments and fun, discovery. My father was a teacher, as I noted, but became a chemist for DuPont and moved us around the country a little bit. We ended up in Wilmington, Delaware, and then of all places, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, due to my father's career. But what I remember most about my father, less than just dragging country, was how much he sparked curiosity in the world among his children. And just, he wasn't pushy. So unlike a lot of my athletic teammates, for example, whose parents were often pushing them one way or another, my dad never did that. But it was the idea with my dad and my mother too was just try this. This is interesting, maybe. And if you don't like it, then try something else. So much of what I fell into, I think, in my career was because of influences like those of my parents.
Thanks. What did you study when you went to school, and how long did you stay in school?
I stayed in school quite a while, although there was one interregnum where I became a high school teacher for 6 years between my master's studies and doctorate program. But I mentioned that my dad became a DuPont chemist at an early age, and before he did that, when he was undertaking his own graduate studies, he left our family for 2 years and lived in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and worked for the Atomic Energy Commission. And he would come back on weekends, and he would come back during the summers, and he would always bring stacks of books and periodicals from the AEC, and I just swallowed those things. And I read a biography of Oppenheimer and Einstein and all the people that were working on these projects. And I too wanted to be a scientist, like my dad, like these people about whom I was learning through my dad's career. And so when I started school, I had my sights set on two things. One was to be a scientist. I was looking at chemical engineering. And the other was to be put myself on a pathway to become a Major League Baseball player. And so those were my two goals. I satisfied neither one of them. And much to my chagrin, the baseball career flamed out quite early. The coach at LSU, when I played, and I knocked heads immediately, and that was the end of that. But the chemical engineering aspirations ended much more fortuitously, because what happened was there were two things. One, I got into the brand new honors program at my alma mater, and they didn't know what to do, so basically they just said, we're going to bring in all the great professors here on campus and expose our students to them. That was it. What I learned then was that the historians and the economists were really fascinating scholars. I gravitated toward that. The other thing that happened was one of my buddies on my baseball team had a father who was a CEO of a company that worked with the local Exxon refinery, and he got me a job there in the summer, which paid quite well. This is 1978, 79, $11 an hour. Tuition in my university was only $230. The baseball coach gave me a meal plan and a dorm, so I didn't have to make a lot of money. But in about a week or two, I could make all that I needed for spending money, paying for books, etc. So that job was great in that respect. But the other thing that I learned on that job was I looked around me and I said, oh my God, if I'm going to be a chemical engineer, this is where I'm going to be working for the rest of my life. And I decided I didn't really want to do that. I remember one day one of my colleagues there said, we're cutting out this rack over here, and we're putting up a new system, and this one had chlorine gas, and this one, on and on and on. And And then he said, can you read the blueprints for me so we know which one we're cutting today? And I thought, chlorine gas, 17-year-old kid reading the blueprints. I don't know about this combination. So I ended up, long story short, gravitating towards study of history and economics very quickly, just because of my exposure, accidental, to some great scholars in those fields.
So tell us a little bit about some of the opportunities in that field that you have experienced, some of your career endeavors up to this point.
Well, there's so many, and there, I guess maybe just hit a couple of highlights, both of which were serendipitous again. I ultimately gravitated toward a study of, when you're in the doctoral programs, you try to figure out a question that needs to be answered. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, I encountered a lot of fellow students and students of my own in later years who just wanted the degree, and I always discouraged that and frowned upon it and fought against it, and admitted at the same time it's difficult sometimes to find that pressing question, but that should be your goal when you're encountering that. And so with me, there were two things that weighed heavily on my mind as I moved into the doctoral program. One was, I was born in 1961. I came of age just as the Vietnam War was ending. But the other thing that was ending was in a sense, the hope and the aspirations that had been in the air during my childhood, during the burgeoning civil rights movement and the progressive changes that were coming about in the 1960s. And I came of age in the 70s when we were being told again and again, we tried to do too much, too fast. It's not going to work. We've got to retrench our efforts here. We've got to withdraw from all of that. And that struck me as wrong and kind of stupid, actually. So that was one thing. The other thing was, it was the 70s and it was stagflation. And I started in grad school hearing arguments about how that came about. Those didn't make sense to me either. And in many ways, it came back to that first argument. It was just that, the architects of the New Deal and the Great Society overreached, and they wanted too much. And they were fighting poverty too assiduously, and all that came back to bite us. None of that made sense to me. So that was what I really, that launched my career. I wrote a dissertation on the stagflation of the 70s, back at the development of, how inflation works over the years, and tried to bring that into my studies. The serendipitous part of that is I wrote about LBJ. I got to meet Lady Bird Johnson. How cool was that? I got to meet John Kenneth Galbraith, whose son helped me along in my doctoral studies. And a lot of people who worked in the Kennedy Johnson years, and just amazing public servants, people who were out to heal the world, and that made me smile and gave me a boost in my own career. So that was certainly one thing. You're a healthcare guy, and one of the things that I wrote about when I had to study inflation was healthcare, because it's an unusual sector, and prices behave differently there. And so I got lucky and got signed on as a budget analyst for the Louisiana legislature looking at healthcare financing, and that was great work. So again, I kind of just stumbled into a lot of these things.
Well, and so then there's quite a bit more, but we are kind of time crunched. And what we did want to find out is how, in the midst of all this and all the wonderful things that you were doing, you got involved in adaptive skiing, and how has that affected you?
Well, it's quite simple, really. I was primed, I think, to get involved long before I ever knew the program existed. I remember I had a biblical literature professor out of that same honors program. He was one of these persons I just met accidentally, who was such a great teacher, and he helped us unravel the mysteries of how the early Christian literature was put together. And what I remember most vividly was from, you mentioned had a similar sentiment in one of his letters to the Corinthians, where he said, and the phrase I remember most vividly, "You are the letter," not a letter written on a tablet or on a piece of paper, but you in your heart are the letter that our followers shall read. And what he meant by that was, it's your life lived and how you do that. And that struck me as really important. So I fast forward, I get up to Wintergreen. My oldest daughter, Emma, was 6 years old. She found a brochure for the program at the old Clooney Rehabilitation Center. Said, "Dad, let's try this." And we said, yes.
And she was at the Kluge Center because
She was born with spina bifida. She had a significant disability. Although, very quickly, I'll say one other thing about Emma, my oldest, is that when her mother and I learned about her disability at first, before we got to see her in the hospital, we were stricken with grief and we didn't know how to react. But then instantly, when we saw her for the first time, it was like, we still grieved, but oh my God, most of that just vanished because we looked into her eyes and the spirit of this child was so amazing. And you could tell she was going to do great things with her life, just like plants. So again, fast forward to 6-year-old Emma, grabbing the brochure, always had a lot of gumption, always wanted to do stuff. We take her up the hill, and one of the first things that she exposed me to there was this notion that her fellow classmates and their families also, to some extent, weren't really suffering because of their member's disability. It was a hardship, yes, and it was difficult always. But they were generally suffering, if from anything, from social isolation, from not being plugged into their communities as well as they should be. And one of the things that Emma convinced me of right off the bat, before she became an instructor, she ultimately did become an instructor in this program, but she started as a student, was she would gravitate toward her fellow classmates and just sometimes with a look and a touch, that she would make them smile. And the first thing that impressed me was that this is a place where we break down that isolation, the social isolation, we plug people into the world around them. And of course we were lucky because we were at Wintergreen, which is a beautiful place, and that makes it even easier to do because it's awe-inspiring. And so that's how I got involved, really. And I joined the board, I became a volunteer, and then I tell people I pulled a Dick Cheney because if you remember what happened when he became running mate way back when, he was on the search committee looking for a running mate. We've looked high and low, and we had a very difficult time, but I think the best choice is me. I was on the board at the time, looking for a new director. We had lost our founding director, and we kept striking out over and over again. And so I threw my hat in the ring, and that's how I got told.
So she has moved down from the Indianapolis Steeple and gotten involved in other things, instructing and quite a few things. And you're still pretty active with the program.
Yes, I handed the baton of the directorship over to a terrific successor. Her name is Kathleen Booth, whom I hope many of you will get to know, involved in some way, directly or indirectly. Kathleen moved here from Colorado and Oregon, where she had experience with these programs. I'm still involved as a volunteer. Yesterday we had a little sun here because we had an adaptive surf camp down in Virginia Beach yesterday. And what a terrific event that turned out to be. We were once again blessed by 80 degrees, 83 degrees, and a breeze. And the surf was perfect for introducing students to surfing. So what a terrific event that turned out to be. But yes, I'm still involved. Emma is still involved. She's a busy young lawyer now, so not as involved as she'd like to be, but she's going to come back. She'll do more.
So, do you see this activity as a pivotal event, as a pivotal, meaningful endeavor, or do you see this more as just one amongst many things that you have done that have had sacredness that we are exploring?
Well, I'll read the first part of your question as begging the question, as they often say. The answer, I hope, is obvious. It was a pivotal event for me, and the program will always be close to my heart. I've left the directorship, still involved with a number of things like the Adaptive Surf Camp, and will continue to be involved. I don't see myself ever walking away from that program in a lot of different ways. And obviously it's a challenge, you know. I'll be 65 next year, and I don't really want to slow down, but I have a lot of things I want to accomplish still in my, with my scholarly work and so on and so forth. So there's always tension between what you're going to do next, but I will always be connected to that.
So I know we're over a little bit, but one last question I did want to ask was, we're focusing on what activities in our life are perceived as sacred by us and what that means. Can you share a little bit about how this program has impacted you from a spiritual perspective, and I don't mean necessarily faith, but just how have you felt about doing this, and how have you felt about all of the other wonderful things that you have done that have had a huge impact on people's lives?
Well, I mentioned St. Paul's letter because I think that kind of sums it up and describes it, is that what I've encountered, especially at the adaptive sports program, but in my academic career, teaching, and on and on and on. I got to talk to an old student just yesterday whom I hadn't seen in 15 years. I taught here at UVA. And what I get out of that is a reminder that, you know, we are the letter. We are our lives lived, you know, how we kind of travel through this wonderful place. And you know, I think there's two sides of it that we should all recognize. One side constitutes the people whom we meet. The other side of it is where we are on this amazing planet. And I think that's why the Winter Green Adaptive Sports has a special effect on me. Again, I refer to the beauty of the place and being there, and how automatically that drew people in and got them out of their social isolation. And they kept wanting to come back over and over again, partly because they wanted to learn, perhaps, but mostly I think because they found a different world and a bigger world there. And I think that's always important.
Dave, thanks so much for having me. Revisit during our communion time. We'll be passing around some cards. So if you have some questions, we'll follow up at the end of the service. Thank you so much. I could sit here and listen for an hour, but other people may not want to stay about that long. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's funny how Mike sneaks in the sweet little moments of, wait a second, I don't do this without Annie, which makes you feel good after we've been married so long. Thank you both. Like, I had the pleasure of meeting his wife before church and having a conversation about our children, and it was impressive how you said the letter, that we are the letter. Being a kindergarten teacher, I always say it as I'm his hands and feet, because you're physical in kindergarten, and that is, like, however you look at that, whether you're his letter or his hands and his feet, that's how people are going to come to know Christ, is how we treat them and how we open up ourselves to experiencing different things and looking at things with different perspectives and without judgment. You know, working with special needs children myself in my career, I didn't think about the social isolation aspect necessarily. I was looking at the children. And so even this morning, I was blessed in that. Thank you. All right. So now that we consider the ways that we can share our sacred bounty at this time, as it's time and talent, your financial support for Park Street helps us maintain our compassionate efforts from our amazing affordable preschool and welcoming support groups to simply keeping this cozy I'm from Alaska. I'm telling you, this cozy sanctuary that we are in this morning. After our special music piece this morning, I'm very excited Jeffrey's singing for us, and some table talk over our communion. Mike and I are going to pass around the collection plates for any contributions as well as your questions, please, to Dave as a follow-up. You will find the question slips on your tables, pins in the back chairs, pockets of your table. Please jot down any questions you have, and David will do his best to align, combine, and share them during the Q&A. Thank you for lending your ears, and now let's sit back and enjoy our special music from Jeffrey.
I just want to share a little bit about myself. I haven't really told everybody at church my story. I have had a slightly traumatic event happen in my childhood. I was accidentally exposed to an inappropriate video that led. I want to hear it. It led me to become obsessed with that video. And my parents, they never really taught me that what I seen was not what I was supposed to have seen. But I was also raised in a household that was just full of love. So I had this kind of like split, like obsession. And it's all culminated until who I am now. And I hearing myself, I learned a lot about myself, who I am, who I want to be. And you're never going to get to where you want to be unless you first believe in yourself. And I finally believe in myself. It's all uphill battle till daylight. First time to be still till the day break. It's no second guessing till you finally get the yes, and it's gonna let you back away from till you take the leap. No mountain ever moved until somebody went and moved it. They said we couldn't catch the moon until somebody proved it. A dream was just a dream until it came to be. 'Cause somebody believed. Love won't heal a broken heart unless you think it can. They can only count you out till you get up again. Sometimes it feels like forever, and you swear that you ain't ever gonna find that gold you're chasing till you own it. No mountain never moved until somebody went and moved it. They said we couldn't catch the moon until somebody proved it. A dream was just a dream until it came to be. 'Cause somebody believed. Sometimes it's a stranger, sometimes it's a friend, sometimes you're the only one who cares.
Thank you so much for everything. Listening and knowing a bit about Dave, my vetting system to make sure you're going to be appropriate for this congregation, but knowing the heart of loving ourselves and loving the children that are brought into our lives, whether they're biological children, somebody that I teach, some that I'm on a baseball team with. I mean, it's how we share our love and acceptance. That it first comes with our understanding and loving of ourselves. And for those of you who've heard me ramble on about this before, I don't mean to edit scripture, I often do, but when I edit this of saying, love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and saying, love your neighbor as yourself, if you do not love yourself, you cannot love your neighbor. So all of your distortions and your criticism of yourself, whether you even accept that you are your self-critic, immediately is broadcast to the world. Just imagine if you had your thoughts amplified. I used to say I would have been out of this business a long time ago. But it's a reality that we need to love ourselves. Even in a place that seems that we are challenged, when we look at our children and you look beyond what seems like what will be their challenge, and know it's what are their gifts. So I wanted to share this poem or a prayer written by Robert Monsoon before we get to this table and we consider our companions sitting around that we break bread with. And realize that their story is important as yours, but you have to first realize that your story is also important. To this body of mine, let me start again. We have had a complicated relationship, you and I. And sometimes it is hard to know where my disabilities start and where you begin. Some days are harder than others, and some days require superhuman efforts. But pain is not my only story, and neither is it my name. You've got me through so much, shielded me from so much. You taught me that a disabled body is a good body, and that difficulty doesn't mean weakness. I watch you grow and change shape as the years grow. So to this body of mine, I love you. I thank you. I appreciate you. Now, at each table, we have a table host. And for this table host, you have some serving utensils, your hands, and there are gloves that you may choose, and whoever chooses to be the table host, who feels comfortable doing that. I'm seeing some gloves leaning towards Becca on this table, for example. Some of our regular table hosts are on their honeymoon right now. I beg that they stop off here first, but I asked somebody to be that designated table host and go ahead and don those just for security and safety's sake. And then you're going to follow the leader. Remember Simon Says? Remember when people went ahead and touched their head even though Simon said not to touch your head at that point? So we're going to play a good game of Simon Says, and it's a sacred Simon Says, and we are going to follow this leader. So when I get the bread and I raise it and I break it, guess what the table host is going to do? And then what are they going to do? They're going to wait until I raise the chalice, and I say the things, and then what are they going to do? And it's then that we will serve our companions, which means breaking bread together. I'd love, because Alton, are you stretching? Are you the table host? Please, table host, why don't we stand up? Alton's doing it. Follow the leader. Follow that leader. And we'll do this together. You see, you understand that this gift, this meal together is a meal of grace and love and fellowship and welcome. We are glad you are here. Everyone is welcome here. Therefore, our elements are gluten-free, they're vegan, they're alcohol-free, and if you just hate grape juice and you'd never ever like bread, well, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you can just cross your arms. It is not the tradition that you were raised in that should keep you from this table. It should not be, oh, but I don't really believe in all of that. Do you believe in time spent around the table? Join us in this meal. So we are reminded in our tradition that our beloved Jesus, who we are disciples of, simply meaning students of, sat around with his closest friends, some who were fiercely loyal, others whose loyalty was in question for good reason, but still everyone was welcome. And he took and raised that bread, blessed it and broke it, saying, "Take you all of it. This is my body." In the same way, he raised the cup. We will raise the cup now and break the bread a little bit later, or not. It's okay. You know, you're all about snacks. And we raise the chalice. There we go. Beautiful. A chalice or a cup was raised. It was blessed. And it was said, "Take this and remember me. Don't just remember me. Remember all that I have taught you. Take my love into the world." And now, you may serve those snacks, Annie, and you can partake in discussions with your table companions for the next several minutes. Take as much of the bread. There is gluten-free. There is a non-gluten-free option that looks a little less brown and square. Have refills. Snack away and share your hearts. God bless you. So the wedge triangle is good. this, as you know, is my least favorite thing to do, and that is to stifle conversations. And when sometimes it takes a while for us to warm up with the people that we've just met. Or sometimes your mom drags you to a table and says, "Be nice, kids." And so I know for those, I also welcome your patience with this experience. We are going to now invite the Daves back up for your Q&A, and I know that David Pedrick will do his best to consolidate similar questions. Yes, Leslie Burns on the back table.
Can I just make a little announcement while they're getting up there?
I mean, it depends on what it is.
We had an anti-racism workshop here.
Hey, you're gonna have to use a mic.
I'm sorry to hold this up.
She's the sound person, and here comes a hand. Look at the two sound people. Go ahead.
Okay. We had an anti-racism workshop here earlier this year, and it was really a great workshop. And one of the things that we brainstormed on doing, because we love music here so much, was somehow doing some sort of a music exchange with one of the Baptist churches here in town that really highlights gospel music. I'm a big fan of gospel music. Spent some time in the gospel tent down at the New Orleans Jazz Festival. It's just like one of my favorite things. I just want to let you guys know that on Tuesday at Mount Zion First African Baptist Church here in Charlottesville, there's a free concert, which is oddly enough being performed by our sister city from France. They are singing gospel music. I don't know what that's going to sound like, but it's at 7 p.m. on Tuesday at Mount Zion. I can't go to that on Tuesday night, but today, this afternoon, between 2 and 4, is an open rehearsal at University Baptist Church Sanctuary. That's today. So that's a couple of opportunities for us to kind of start to go down this path a little bit if anybody's interested. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Send me that info and I can blast it out. Okay, now it's time. Oops, turn off. Yeah, okay. Hold on.
Okay, so,
Do I start there? Or we go? So, we have 20 minutes for this. Which of your volunteer efforts, and this is maybe begging the question again, but we'll do it one more time. What has brought you the most personal satisfaction and the most growth? And let's do volunteer efforts and also career activity.
That's a difficult question.
Okay, so we'll skip that one.
I think I've been lucky in one great respect, and that is that almost all of the volunteer efforts in which I've been involved through the years overlap, almost always. And so one leads me to another, et cetera, so I don't really have to say, all right, now I'm going to focus this year on X or Y or Z. They all kind of blend together, and that makes it really nice and special. I will say that, over the years, just judging from the calendar, I've probably spent more time with the adaptive sports program than other volunteering efforts. But my work in the civil rights movement goes back to the early 1980s when I was on the statewide steering committee for the YWCA in Louisiana. I continued that work for, 45 years. So there you have it.
Do you feel growing up that moving many times was more beneficial to your life, or would growing up in one place have been better?
I like being rooted in a place. And so I always make a special effort, even today, and sometimes my wife Leslie will chide me for my preoccupation with this, but whenever we travel, I like to travel to places, generally, where we have friends and family, to reconnect, and so we don't, miss out on those connections throughout our lives. I like going to interesting places too, and and so does Leslie, and I love that. But it's a tough question because, I will say this. One of the nice things about being uprooted and taken to Louisiana when I was 15 years old, two things. If you know Louisiana, you know that it's one of the more culturally, socially diverse places on the planet. And that was a godsend for me, just to be exposed to that. The second is, that's why I met my wife. So, it changed my life in amazing ways. So, thank God for that.
And speaking of the fortuitousness of one thing leading to another, one of our questions was, and I suspect who might have written this one, was meeting your wife another fortuitous or serendipitous story? Please elaborate.
Yes, of course. And fortuitous is the wrong word. Fortunate. Let's say that. Fortuitous just means, kind of happenstance and, come what may. I think I put forth a good bit of energy in making sure that we became connected at some point once I met her. But we did travel in a very wide circle of friends, and we knew each other long before we dated. And so, there you have it. There is a fortuitous element to all of that. Our first date was when I was a high school teacher, and I was the junior class sponsor at this particular school. And I was responsible for not too many things, but one of which was to help the juniors pick a band for the prom. And there was a group called Dash Rip Rock back then in the 1980s in Louisiana that became Cowboy Mouth. Some of you may have heard of them later on. And they played at the junior prom that year. I knew a couple of the guys in the band and got them in. And I needed an extra chaperone, so my first date with my wife was to ask her to help me chaperone that prom. The rest is history.
Interesting that the exciting story leading to a lifetime together came from chaperones at the prom instead of the students.
That's right.
So, how do you keep your sights, eyes, heart, mind, soul positive when things are really stressful and hard?
All of us work ourselves into a funk now and again. There's no doubt about that. I think generally, if we're talking about spiritual connections, I remember also in my undergraduate years being exposed to the Taoist philosophy. And then later on I read this really amazing slim volume called The Tao of Wu. I don't know if any of you have encountered that volume. But the one thing that the author tried to stress in that volume, and what I saw in my earlier meanderings in the Taoist philosophy, was that compared to the Confucianist and Buddhist and looking at Asian spirituality in general, the Taoists were the ones who, they were the ones who would take the vinegar and figure out that, hey, drop a little bit of olive oil in this, and maybe sprinkle a little salt, it's not so bad. And the Buddhists were the ones who tasted the vinegar and spat it out, and or said, this is what we have to live with for the rest of our lives. Tasting this spoiled wine. And so I always had a natural sympathy for that kind of Taoist outlook that yes, of course we're going to have setbacks. I mean, we're going to get ourselves into a funk. But just step back and look at this amazing place in which we live. When I was thinking about what might come up in today's discussion, one of the things regarding my outlook on being in a beautiful place and how that helps pull people out of their social isolation sometimes. I remember as a kid also, it was Apollo 8, I think. I forget how old I was when Apollo 8 happened, but I think I was 10. And this was the famous pre-lunar landing flight where they circumnavigated the globe. And one of the astronauts took that amazing photograph of the Earth, and it's called Earthrise. Wasn't Lovell, I forgot. William Anders, I think, was the astronaut. Frank Borman was a fellow astronaut with him on that flight. And Borman described
That's
it
an insane memory.
Borman described it as being like a heart-stopping moment when they looked back and they saw this blue, magnificent orb. And, you know, I think we just have to remind ourselves of that over and over again, how blessed we are to be in such an amazing place, embrace the mysteries of that place and all the wonder that comes with it. And I think it can be overwhelming in the best sense. Overwhelming meaning that, you know, that's when MLK spoke at Riverside Church in 1967. He talked about how, you know, yes, you know, we're all going to have setbacks in this movement of ours, and we're going to get down. He said, but, you know, love creeps through all that, and it's more powerful, and it will help us overcome all of that. And, you know, that beauty that we see around us is a big part of that. And the beauty that we see in our brothers and sisters around is a big part of that too. So that makes it easy.
Well, I think that's about the time for us. We're running a little bit over, but not any more than we usually do. So I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for sharing yourself.
Thank you so much.
So I'm not going to say much more. I do want to say that I want us to keep some people in our thoughts and prayers. I want to lift up to consider Ricky Kane while I was away. Had some surgery and he's home recovering. Mike Davis is doing well, but he's at home with that recovery. And also we want to think about our wonderful and wild Elaine, who is having some hip replacement surgery. That she and Joy are finding a place to rest before their 8 o'clock appointment tomorrow. So I'll be able to see them. But I really wanted us to lift those folks up. And for any of us in this place that are struggling with any heartache, not feeling as well as we want to, close your eyes and think of that big blue dot. I think about the books and the things about this moon and this planet and this wonderful God, that even if we aren't able to walk through life without some injustices or hurts and aches, we are promised that God is always with us regardless of all those things. I'm going to have now Donna lead us in our closing breathing kindness song. I think many of you are familiar. If not, I'm sure you will be able to catch on soon.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease.
would love to say, go in peace, serve the Lord, thanks be to God. What I really want to do is say, hey, go make a difference and say hi to somebody you don't know. Make some noise, people. Make some